Carter Stanley was one of the greatest bluegrass songwriters of all time, as well as being greatest lead singer in bluegrass of all time. Loved his voice. I loved the way he wrote songs, and he kind of was pushed into writing songs. There's a story Ralph told me a long time ago. I didn't put this in my book, and maybe Gary did. I'm not 100% sure, but he could have. But anyway, you know, Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs was both with Mr. Monroe when this music took form and took shape. Earl came on in December of 1945. Lester had already been in the band for about a year, I think, 44, and so he and Mr. Monroe really had a great duet thing happening. And but String Bean was getting ready to leave the band and start doing comedy full time. And so they were looking for a banjo player, and they heard about a 21-year-old. I know what that's like. Close. Anyway, that there was a 21-year-old banjo player from Shelby, North Carolina that just played the fire out of the banjo, and his name was Earl Scruggs, and so they auditioned him and hired him. And anyway, they didn't really start recording till 1946, and so you can go back and listen to all those great historic recordings that Art Satherley, the old Columbia producer, produced those records up in Chicago's where they went up to record. And but anyway, the only way you could really hear Bill Monroe's music was on the weekends on Saturday night at the Grand Ole Opry, or go see him play somewhere. Nowadays, you can hit one button and it'll be on your phone and you can listen to it within a minute, you know, all these things. And they've got all those songs up there, most all of them anyway. And but they didn't have that back then. So Ralph told me how they would listen on the radio to Mr. Monroe singing with Lester on the Opry, and Earl playing banjo, and Carter would try to copy the verse down, you know, and Ralph would be responsible for getting the words to the chorus, you know. And Pee Wee Lambert, he was kind of the third Stanley brother for a long time there, and he would kind of help back up Carter and back up Ralph. I mean, he was listening to everything, listening to the arrangements and all that, and finding the keys and all that. And anyway, that's how they had to do it back then. So Carter and Ralph was doing quite a few of Mr. Monroe's songs because that's the style they just landed on, and they loved it, you know. Well, after I guess it was probably after Lester and Bill, or Lester and Earl left Mr. Monroe's band, Carter and Ralph had been playing at Farm and Fun Time in Bristol at a radio show there for, you know, quite a few years actually. And even when Flatt and Scruggs was still with Mr. Monroe. But they came over there, Flatt and Scruggs did, and I think Lester just had an altercation with Carter and told him to quit singing his songs. And I think Carter just kind of, he just kind of slapped the taste out of old Lester's mouth, and he said, all right, well, I'll write my own expletive songs then, and I won't be doing your songs anymore. So anyway, it kind of pushed Carter into writing songs, which is the greatest thing could have ever happened. You imagine if what bluegrass would be without Carter Stanley singing in his songs. It would be pretty empty, I think. And here's another song that Carter kind of took an idea of and you know, and rewrote this song right here. This is called If I Lose. ground. When you here by my side, baby, the deal just can't go down. Now if I lose, let me lose. I don't care how much I lose. If I lose $100 while I'm trying to win a dime, my baby, she's got money all the time. She's got money all the time. All right. Ralph and Carter had a unique harmony style that they came up with when Pee Wee Lambert was singing in the band. At first, when they would sing together, Pee Wee would sing like a tenor above Carter, and when they were doing trios, I'll say, they would do Pee Wee singing above Carter, and then Ralph would, sing the baritone, but he really didn't hear the part in his head. He really didn't hear it that well, and so they're trying to figure out a way that they could do those parts, and where Ralph could sing the tenor, the part that he knew better than anybody, and then that Pee Wee then could sing along too. So instead of doing a part below Carter, which would have been the baritone part, Pee Wee flipped it up a whole octave and sung the fifth above Carter and above Ralph's third. So you had 1, 3, and 5 in the scale, and man, that was just the nastiest of all kinds of sound. It was so good, and it was just so mountain and so high and lonesome. It just sounded so perfect, and there was just this timbre and this bend and this nerve of that music that nothing else is like it in the whole world. I'm telling you, it's so great. And so we're gonna do you a song here that kind of shows that lead, and Dennis will sing the tenor, and Paul will do the high Pee Wee part way on up in there where only angels fear to tread. Here's a Lonesome Night. She was too tired.